Perfect One Piece game, a video series going in depth about what I think should be in, well, the perfect One Piece video game. And in my video covering how devil fruits will work in the game, I said I'd make a side series where I take certain devil fruits and go into detail about how they will work in this game. This is devil fruit functions in the perfect One Piece game. So in my last devil fruit functions video, I covered the Ope Ope No Mi, the Soru Soru No Mi, and the Yomi Yomi No Mi. And in this video, per the overall request of your comments, I'll be covering the Suna Suna No Mi, the Uru No Mi model Seiryu, and of course, the Gomu Gomu No Mi. So how would these three devil fruits work in the game? Let's find out. Before we start, remember to check out my video on how devil fruits will work in the perfect One Piece game, along with my entire perfect One Piece game catalog to get a good understanding of what I'm talking about. So let's get right into it, starting with our first devil fruit, the Suna Suna No Mi. The Suna Suna No Mi, or the Sand fruit, is a Logia type devil fruit that allows the user to create, control, and manipulate sand, as well as making the user's body made up of sand as well. As a Logia, the fruit would make the user unaffected by attacks that aren't coded in Haki. Techniques for the Suna Suna No Mi would include Desert Spider, a ranged ground slicing attack, Desert Garrison, a technique that would create a decent sized quicksand pit in the ground which would suck in enemies, burying them. Barjan, a charging and cutting technique that would cause damage as well as rob the enemies of their moisture and render them helpless for 10 seconds. Sables, a technique which would allow the player to create a huge sand tornado, ranging in size depending on how long the user charged the attack. The tornado could send players flying in the air and blow them away. Ground Secco, a technique that allows the players to dry up the ground below them, causing the radius of land around them to become sand, making their sand attacks much stronger. And Desert La Espada, a cutting attack that unleashes 4 blades made of sand towards enemies. The following techniques would be considered ultimate techniques for the Suna Suna No Mi. The first of these being Ground Death, a much stronger version of Ground Secco that not only alters the ground below the user, but also destroys and dries up enemies and structures around the user. The radius of this attack will depend on how long the user charges the attack. Desert Icero, a one-shot charging and grabbing attack where the user charges and grabs an enemy and completely dries them of their moisture, rendering them incapacitated. This attack will have a cooldown time of about 3 minutes because it's a one-shot. Sable's Pasado, a powerful projectile that condenses and shoots out a powerful shockwave. And lastly, Desert Grande Spada, a bigger and much powerful version of Desert Spada, which could be aimed at any part of the ground, causing a large sand blade to erupt from the ground at the spot. Besides having the basic weakness of not being able to swim, the Suna Suna No Mi would have a harsher weakness to water. Because it's sand, the user would not be able to use any of the Suna Suna No Mi attacks in the rain. They will also be much weaker and slower. This will also cause them to lose their Logia invulnerability in the rain as well. And the user will also receive much more damage from water-based attacks like Fishman Karate. So it would be unwise to fight a Fishman Karate specialist. Next is the Uu No Mi model Seiryu. The Uu No Mi model Seiryu, or the Fish fruit model Azure Dragon, is a mythical zone type devil fruit that allows the user to transform into a gigantic blue dragon and use multiple powerful abilities. One of the main abilities of this fruit is that it makes the user invulnerable to non-advanced Haki and some devil fruit attacks. Regular attacks can blow the user away or knock them down, but they do absolutely no damage to the user's health. As with all zones, you get 2 transformations, the full beast form and the hybrid form. In the full beast form transformation, the user would transform into a huge blue dragon that could fly in the sky. The player will be huge, spending about the size of a town island. While the user is in this form, the sky around the area will go black. This will allow other players from a distance to know where the user is. Like all zone hybrid forms, the hybrid form of this fruit will increase the user's size, attack power, movement speed, and defensive stats. In both these forms, the user will be able to use very powerful techniques. The first of which is Bolo Breath, a huge fire blast that will incinerate enemies and cause burn effects. This attack could be done from both forms, but the blast will be much bigger in beast form. Demolition Wind, a fury of huge slashes that could be fired at a wide range. Dragon Twister, an ability that allows the user to create 3 giant twisters that could send enemies flying and blown away. And Flaming Dragon Torch, an ability that would be used in beast form where the user would cloak himself in magma-like flames to create an even bigger fire dragon which would incinerate areas on a large scale. It could most likely decimate an entire town island full of players in one shot. Now as far as we know in the series, Kaido was never awakened, But in my honest opinion, I believe Kaido did have an awakening, and his awakening was his more monstrous like hybrid form. So in this game, I'd make that the user's awakening, buffing their stats all around and making them much bigger. And finally, the Gomu Gomu No Mi. The Gomu Gomu No Mi, or the Gum Gum fruit, is a paramecia type devil fruit that causes the user's body to be made of rubber. Because the user is made of rubber, when they are attacked by blunt weapons in unarmed combat, they don't take very much damage. This also includes fall damage. This fruit will make the user completely immune to electric attacks. This includes the powers of the Gomu Gomu No Mi, the Auto Weather Thunder techniques, electro attacks, Dengeki Blue attacks, and pretty much any other attack that deals with electricity. This will also mean the user could never be paralyzed by electricity as well. As for attacks, there are probably about 100 named Gomu Gomu No Mi attacks in the series, considering this is a fruit used by the main character. And this is a series with over 1,000 chapters, so I'm not about to go through all of them. But pretty much all of them will be able to be learned except the more improvised techniques like the Gomu Gomu No Mi, which is the Gomu Gomu Human Shield. Aside from that, all of Luffy's techniques are pretty straightforward. They're either punches, kicks, modes of transportation, or defense. Now, unlike most devil fruits, the Gomu Gomu No Mi could level up their user's attacks with the use of gears. Gear 2 will buff the user's movement speed and attack speed, as well as attack power immensely. Overusing Gear 2 in the player's earlier stages with the fruit could cause their health to deplete over time. Gear 3 will allow the user to use giant versions of their attacks, immensely buffing their attack power. In the player's earlier stages of using Gear 3, after using it, the player would shrink into the size of a child, making them very weak and useless. This will last for about 2 minutes, and the more the player uses Gear 3 and levels up the technique, the less time it will take to revert back to their original form, until it ultimately won't have that effect anymore. Gear 4 allows the user to transform themselves into a bulkier body coated with armament haki that would amplify the user's attack, power, and speed depending on the form. There are 3 forms of Gear 4, those being Bound Man, Snake Man, and Tank Man. Bound Man would greatly increase the user's attack power and overall movement speed. Snake Man would greatly increase the user's attack and movement speed. And Tank Man would decrease the player's movement speed, but would greatly increase their defense. Gear 4 transformation will last for about 2 minutes, and once it's over, the user will revert back to their original form, but will be rendered completely helpless for 3 minutes. Now, I know Luffy's original time in the series was 10 minutes, but 10 minutes in a video game in the heat of combat is a really long time. Hell, 3 minutes is a really long time on its own, but that's more reasonable. This time would eventually decrease the more the player uses Gear 5 and levels it up. And if it wasn't already clear, a player would need to have learned Armament Haki to unlock Gear 4. Now let's talk about the awakening. So remember when I said that this was a paramecia? I lied. Well, kinda. It's both a paramecia and a mythical zone fruit. So upon awakening this fruit, it would be called by its true name, the Hito Hito no Mi Model Nika, or the Human Fruit Model Nika, in which it would transform the user in the image of the sun god Nika. This form would be called Gear 5. While in Gear 5, the user's clothes would turn all white along with their hair texture becoming more cloud-like, with the user brandishing an almost demonic looking smile on their face. The main ability of Gear 5 is turning things around them into rubber. So in this game, the user can make a certain area in the ground rubber and bounce on it to jump around. The user can also redirect incoming projectiles and blasts by turning the ground rubber and pulling it up from the ground below them, allowing attacks to bounce back at the enemy. In Gear 5, the user can also inflate themselves to become muscular like in Gear 4 to increase their attack power. They can also inflate themselves to become giant for a period of time. Now in order to even be able to unlock Gear 5, the user would have to have unlocked all forms of Haki. This includes their advanced versions. A player would achieve Gear 5 by first being defeated in battle, in which they would be given the option to awaken from their lifeless body, transforming them. Gear 5 will last about 2 minutes and will have the same cooldown time as Gear 4 with about 3 minutes. Like Gear 4, after usage of Gear 5, the player will be rendered helpless and drained of energy, but I think that's a pretty fair trade for all that power. And seeing that this is not only a mythical zone type, but also the devil fruit of the main character of this series, there should be no surprise that this will be the most rarest fruit in the game. And that's how these devil fruits will work in the game. If you guys would like another one of these devil fruit videos to be made, go ahead and comment down below what devil fruits you'd like to see, and whichever 3 fruits I see the most is the ones that will be in the next video. Follow me on Instagram at RedXRonnie, follow me on Twitter at RedXRonnie, join my Discord with the link below, and like and subscribe for more. See you in the next one. Peace.